Now let's take a look at Alliance against each of its major competitors: Toyota Corolla, VW Golf, Ford Escort, and Chevy Chevette. What we've done is run a series of head-to-head comparisons on our Burlington Proving Grounds to compare acceleration, suspension, and cornering ability. We've also made some interior comparisons as well. Let's start with the acceleration. First, our Alliance with a 1.7-liter engine versus Chevy Chevette. We beat them by a car length. Next, the Toyota. Almost a dead heat, but as you can see here in this stop action, our wheels were over the line first. Give this one to the Alliance torque. Both a 1.7 and 2-liter engines can hold their own off the line. Here's the Ford Escort. Close, but we were at least half a car length in front. Finally, the VW Golf. Looks like we were almost a car length faster. Bottom line on this acceleration comparison is that while we don't leave any of our competitors eating our dust in this short tenth of a mile race, we can certainly hold our own. As you can see, our 1.7-liter fuel-injected engine apologizes to no one. Now let's move on to a comparison of the rear suspensions. First, the Alliance with its independent rear suspension. As you can see, the action of one wheel does not affect the other. During the period when this wheel drops into the simulated pothole, the other wheel rolls on unaffected. At this point, the Alliance is going to run over an irregular road surface, which is designed to test the ability of the suspension system to hold the car stable through the bumps. As you can see, both the yaw and the pitch are minimal. Now compare this to the Chevy Chevette with its fixed rear axle. In slow motion, you can see how, in this case, the action of one wheel does, in fact, impact the other. What this means is that the car is not going to be able to deliver the same ride as the Alliance. Look at it again. With a fixed axle, there is simply no way for the suspension system to isolate the unaffected wheel. The fixed axle characteristics also show up on the irregular road surface. As you can see, there is a very definite pitch to the car. What you're seeing is the reason that more and more manufacturers have opted for the four-wheel independent suspension. It costs more, but the impact on the ride characteristics is significant. Here's the Toyota with four-wheel independent suspension. Like the Alliance, the action of one wheel does not affect the other. Once it reaches the irregular surface, my eye tells me that it appears to be just about as stable as the Alliance. Next, the Ford Escort. Again, we see the benefit of an independent rear suspension. On this section, the Escort seems to perform as well as the Alliance. There's some pitch, but it's minimal under the circumstances. Finally, the VW Golf. Like the Alliance, it does well over the potholes. Again, the benefit of independent rear suspension. On the irregular road surface, it appears to remain fairly stable. Okay, if we were keeping score, and we are, I'd have to rank the Alliance, Corolla, VW, and Ford in a tie for first, with the Chevette a distant second. Let's move on to another suspension comparison. Here we're looking at the effect that a series of alternate roll bumps will have on the suspension system, and thus the stability of the car. In this comparison, we're running the Alliance side by side with each of its competitors. Once again, let's start with the Chevette. There's really no contest here. Notice how the Alliance seems to step over the bumps, while the Chevy is bouncing so much that the wheels all but come off the pavement, which means that in certain situations, the driver of a Chevette could momentarily lose steering control. Next, the Toyota Corolla. You be the judge, but for my money, it appears as if the Alliance handles the bumps better. The Toyota body is really moving around. Here we are against the Ford Escort. The main difference here is that the Escort seems to lose directional stability. Notice how the front wheels move from side to side while the Alliance's line remains straight and true. As you can see, we can hold the Alliance emblem in the circle. Not so with the Escort. I think we have to score 1 for the Alliance in this comparison. Finally, the VW Golf. The two cars are pretty well matched. However, the VW does seem to create more pitch. I think we have to give the edge to Alliance. Okay, in my opinion, Alliance has demonstrated its superiority over each of the other competitors. What this means is that our suspension system will behave better under severe conditions, and that we're better able to maintain both steering control and directional track under very adverse circumstances. Now let's move on to a cornering comparison. Here again, the suspension plays a key role. The idea of this comparison is to drive each car around this curve with its corrugated surface. The intent here is to see which cars can take the curve at 45 miles an hour without side slipping. If the suspension system is up to the test, it should make it possible for the car to maintain a smooth, constant line around the turn. Again, let's start with the Alliance. As you can see, it holds the curve and comes around in a nice, smooth arc. Next, the Chevette. It begins to slip sideways the moment the driver begins to turn the wheel. Here in slow motion, you can see that the moment the wheels begin to turn, the G-forces overcome the ability of the suspension system to hold the car on its line. The driver has to fight to keep the car from running off into the grass. Just for the sake of comparison, let's take a look at the Alliance again. Obviously, the Alliance four-wheel independent suspension makes a major difference in the two cars. Next, the Toyota. It's much better than the Chevette, but as you can see, it loses its line at the apex. Look at it in slow motion. It comes into the turn hugging the left side of the road. But as the turn reaches the apex, the car slides across to the other side. Here's the Ford Escort. It's better than the Chevette, but it develops a different problem. Look at it in slow motion. It begins the turn all right, but it loses it at the apex and then fishtails. We decided to give the Ford a second chance. Once again, it slides out at the apex, but this time the fishtailing is minimal. Finally, the VW Golf. As you can see, it holds the line all the way around. I think it's fair to say that it behaves just like an Alliance. Okay, in this comparison, the Alliance and VW were clearly superior, followed by the Toyota, Ford, and Chevy in that order. By the way, you should know that the Alliance GS has exceptional lateral G-cornering ability, which is outstanding in its class. The benefit to the driver is that the GS will remain extremely stable during cornering.